Episode 4: How KOKO Networks Collapsed Overnight. The carbon credit crisis that shut down a startup serving 1.5 million households. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your cooking fuel no longer works. No warning, no refill, no backup plan. That's exactly what happened to over 1.5 million households across Kenya when KOKO Networks abruptly shut down operations on January 31st, 2026. 700 employees lost their jobs overnight. Thousands of fuel agents lost income, and one of Africa's most celebrated climate tech startups suddenly collapsed into crisis. But here's the shocking part. KOKO didn't fail because customers rejected the product. It failed because of a battle over carbon credits. This is the untold story behind KOKO Networks.
Welcome to Startup Autopsy Kenya. In this episode, we break down how KOKO Networks built one of Africa's most ambitious clean energy systems, why investors believed it could transform cooking in Africa, how carbon credits became the foundation of the business, and how one regulatory dispute brought the entire company to a halt. Let's get into it. KOKO Networks was founded to solve one of Africa's biggest hidden problems: cooking fuel. Millions of households across Kenya still rely on charcoal and kerosene, fuels linked to deforestation, indoor pollution, respiratory disease, and rising living costs. KOKO's solution looked revolutionary. The company created a network of smart bioethanol fuel ATMs installed inside local shops and supermarkets. Customers could walk into a nearby kiosk, refill clean bioethanol fuel digitally, and use specially designed KOKO stoves at home. It was modern, affordable, tech-driven, and environmentally friendly. Investors loved it. KOKO quickly became one of Africa's biggest climate tech success stories, raising massive funding and scaling across Kenya at extraordinary speed. Eventually, the company claimed to serve around 1.5 million households, roughly 6 million Kenyans. At first glance, this looked like the future of clean cooking in Africa. But beneath the surface, there was one massive dependency holding everything together: carbon credits. The business model.
This is where the story becomes fascinating. KOKO was not making its money primarily from fuel sales. In fact, the company sold bioethanol fuel at heavily subsidized prices, often around half the normal market cost. So how was that possible? Carbon credits. Every time a household switched from charcoal or kerosene to cleaner ethanol fuel, KOKO could calculate the reduction in carbon emissions. Those emissions reductions could then be packaged into carbon credits and sold to international buyers, companies and organizations trying to offset their own emissions globally. That carbon revenue became the engine powering the entire business. It subsidized the fuel, the stoves, the infrastructure, and the expansion. In simple terms, KOKO's affordability depended on international carbon markets continuing to work smoothly. And that created a dangerous vulnerability, because once regulation entered the picture, everything changed. According to reports, the Kenyan government refused to issue KOKO the critical letter of authorization needed for the company to monetize its emissions reductions internationally. Without that approval, KOKO could no longer legally access the carbon credit revenues sustaining the business model. And suddenly, the economics collapsed. Fast. On January 31st, 2026, KOKO abruptly shut down its Kenyan operations. The consequences were immediate. More than 700 employees lost their jobs. Thousands of local fuel agents lost commissions and income. And perhaps most dramatically, millions of Kenyans were left stranded with unusable cooking systems and forced back to charcoal and kerosene. A company that had positioned itself as the future of clean energy in Africa had effectively gone dark overnight.
And now, the fallout may extend far beyond Kenya. Reports suggest KOKO could pursue a massive breach of contract claim through Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, commonly known as MIGA, part of the World Bank Group ecosystem. If that happens, the collapse could become one of the most significant climate tech disputes Africa has seen in years. The bigger lesson. KOKO's collapse reveals something many founders ignore. A startup can have real customers, real impact, strong technology, massive funding, and still fail because of regulatory risk. This wasn't simply a technology problem. It was a policy problem, a financing problem, and a business model dependency problem. KOKO built an entire ecosystem around carbon credit monetization. But when that single pillar became unstable, the entire structure started collapsing. And this highlights a major reality for African startups. If your business depends heavily on government approvals, subsidies, or international financing mechanisms, regulatory uncertainty can become an existential threat, especially in infrastructure-heavy sectors like climate tech and energy. So, what are the lessons for founders? First, never build a business that depends entirely on one fragile revenue stream. Second,
regulatory risk can destroy even fast-growing startups. Third, impact alone is not enough. Your economics must survive political and market shocks. And finally, Africa's biggest opportunities often exist in sectors with the highest complexity. That means founders must learn to navigate not just technology, but policy, finance, and geopolitics too. This has been Startup Autopsy Kenya, brought to you by Mind Moja Africa, the home of African innovation. Subscribe for more deep dives into the rise, success, and collapse of Africa's biggest startups.